These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Yeah, that's Glenn is a control owner. We'll have the final decision, absolutely. But as Glenn said before, I think he's already been asking Alex and I for our input, and we've been involved in all the key decisions to date. So I feel really fortunate that Glenn and Becky have been so open about it and wanting our help in this interim period.
I think we need a separate press conference just to discuss the shower heads that Alex Rodriguez brought up. I want like a 30-minute full Q&A. I need a Johnny Krasinski athletic profile on the best shower heads.
I want more.
NBA.
I want more uncomfortable laugh track laughter, which is what that was. The old
or why A-Rod couldn't get a prom date, after about to make his MLB debut. He mentioned that too, 2 months prior to making his debut. He couldn't get a prom date.
You know what steroids does, Dex?
That's true.
Wow, dude. Wow. Yeah. He would have just been starting on the steroids, though. Would it make that big of an impact?
Did you take steroids? I didn't. I don't know.
No, I missed out on the steroid era.
Reckless speculation.
This is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. We raise the bar in terms of expectations for our sports teams. We just want them to win championships. So, the Wolves are pretty far away from that. We can talk more about them here with our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department and the Scoop podcast, which you can find every week on ScoreNorth.com and the Score North app. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. Darren, how are you?
Good morning, Phil. Good morning, Judd. Good morning, Declan. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. I'll tell you what impressed me. I was there earlier this week. I was there on Monday. What impressed me the most about Alex Rodriguez, he has a really, really good makeup artist. He had really good makeup. And, I get it. You're in front of the camera. You're taking all these photos. I'd probably put makeup on, too. I'm anchoring this weekend. Chris Long is on vacation, so I'll be on TV.
But you do your own makeup when you anchor,
I
right?
do. I don't have a makeup artist. Yeah. Trust me. I don't have a makeup artist at all.
Little blush there, dude.
Many, many years ago.
Foundation?
In fact, 15 to 20 years ago when I first started at Channel 5, there actually was a full-time makeup artist. But somewhere along the way, that was a very logical budget cut. That was a way to save some money. So, yeah, I don't have a makeup artist. A-Rod had an entourage. I'm not making this up. He had 4 or 5 handlers, at his side every time he turned a corner. I mean, he is as buttoned up as it gets.
See, I've always wondered, because I follow him on social media. He's very, very active on Instagram and different social media platforms.
No, there are others who have influenced him in that regard.
And I'm always wondering,
he's got the right people around him.
Right, when he has these pontificating poses, gazing off in the distance on a yacht. I'm like, well, I thought it was J-Lo that used to take those pictures, but not anymore. Who's taking those pictures and those videos? And so he's got a team. That's good.
He has a legit team. Yeah. Now we still need to see if him and Mark can fully get their finances in order. There are still some question marks about that as we approach December of 2023. That's the plan for them to transition into majority ownership, almost about 2 years from now. I think there's still some work to be done in that regard. But then again, you don't do that news conference on Monday if there were these large questions about them getting the finances and, figuring this thing out. So everybody internally is assuming, they're going to get this thing done. Heck, maybe it even speeds up. Maybe it's not December of 2023. But I'm just telling you, there are some people that still wonder about that.
So, all right, you've done an amazing job, and there's multiple episodes going back the last couple weeks on Gerson Rosas and his downfall. And so if anyone wants any of that and you missed it, definitely check out Tuesday's bonus scoop, last week's episode. I'd love to shift the Wolves conversation to sort of a forward-looking discussion here. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns seems to be in really good spirits. He said he's playing about 25 pounds lighter than he was in previous years. He looks like he's in a physically good situation. Ant seems ready to rock and roll, sort of above the fray. What are you hearing, sensing as you sort of soak in now media day and the practices that they've had this week and people you've talked to, the Wolves going forward from all of this, Doogie?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are tears being shed, Phil, over Gerson Rosas's dismissal. Anybody who suggested the day it happened that Cat was upset, might even ask out, as laughable as it gets. Cat and Gerson did not have any sort of solid relationship. So don't worry about that. I'm with you. I mean, 240 pounds, he looks fantastic. I actually wonder if he's too fit, if he's too skinny. When you're playing the 5 position, would it help to be closer to 260, 265? But yeah, he's adopted some of those Ben Wallace, regimens going back many, many years. Arnie Kander, who used to work for the Wolves, one of Flip Saunders' guys. Arnie is still really close with Cat. Arnie has a good relationship with Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace came to Wolves training camp way back when Cat was a rookie. And over the years, I think there's at least been some back and forth, but certainly way back when Cat was a sponge. I mean, for a few days when Ben Wallace was in town, Cat attached himself to Ben, just learning all about how he eats, how he works out. And so Cat, over the years, has adopted a lot of those Ben Wallace techniques. So Cat is in a really good spot. I have a fantasy basketball draft coming up on October 10th.
Tell us about it.
Judd would love to hear. Judd would love to hear about it.
I mean,
what
are you considering doing?
Cat. Yeah, well, I hope I'm in a position if I have
Call
a top
Gerson.
5 pick. Yeah,
He's got time.
I want Cat. I think he's primed to have a really good year. I rode the elevator the other day with Jim Peterson. We were going back and forth on what we think of the Wolves this year. I would bet the over, not comfortably, but I would bet the Vegas over-under of 34.5 wins, Phil. I really would. I think they go over. I do. And I'm not even suggesting that's a for surefire, top 10 team in the Western Conference. They at least will be in the play-in tournament. I'm not even ready to go quite there, but I do think they go over 34.5 wins. I think Chris Finch is a really, really good coach. I think bringing in Elston Turner was a shrewd move. So I think Chris Finch with a full training camp, with a full season here, durability will matter most. I mean, that is something that they have studied a ton. Phil, they point to a lot of Phoenix's success last year. Now, don't get me wrong. Phoenix has a ton of really good talent. Bringing in Chris Paul put them over the edge. But if you look at games missed, Phoenix just didn't have guys miss a lot of games last year.
Yeah.
So the Wolves feel really confident if Cat can play 75 or more games, D'Angelo Russell can play 75 or more games, but D'Angelo has an injury history. That's the problem. Anthony Edwards, if he can play 75 or more games, Jaden McDaniels to some extent, Malik Beasley to some extent, if they can keep those guys on the court, they do feel like they will be in the playoffs.
Dukes, where does this team stand right now as far as potential moves go? Because I think the intriguing thing to me is the future of Sachin Gupta, what he's going to be allowed to do. It seems right now like he just picked up the ball, basically, no pun intended, from Gerson. What do you expect that he is trying to do? Do you think he is as active as Gerson was? Because it did seem like, despite the lack of moves at the deadline and this summer, that Gerson certainly was active in at least making calls on a consistent basis.
I would say at least for the first few days, not a ton of activity. Do I think that will ramp up? Yes. Does he have leeway, Judd, to do as he sees fit? He does. Does he have a really good relationship with Mark Lowry? Yes. Does he have a really good relationship with Glenn Taylor? Not quite yet. I think that will evolve. But I was led to believe that when everything transpired, I'm not even quite sure that Glenn knew who Gupta was. Glenn now knows who Gupta
and now
was,
he's running. Now he's running the most important department.
There wasn't much of a relationship there, but Mark Lowry, I'm telling you, Mark Lowry in particular, him and Sachin have developed a nice bond. And I'm just telling you, Sachin has the green light to make a Ben Simmons trade, right? He is going to engage with his guy Daryl Morey. In fact, I'm positive when I say this. Sachin Gupta and Daryl Morey have a better relationship than Gerson Rosas and Daryl Morey have. That doesn't mean that a trade is going to happen. The hurdles still remain. You still need to find a third team, but we know how creative Gupta can be, the creator of the ESPN trade machine. He is going to work like heck. He thinks Ben Simmons is an excellent fit. Nothing has changed on that front. Sachin Gupta would love to acquire Ben Simmons, so he will work diligently. He'll also work smartly. I don't think he's giving up Anthony Edwards. You know how Gerson told Daryl, hey, Anthony Edwards off limits, Karl-Anthony Towns off limits. I don't think anything has changed, right? And I still think Sachin would like to form a bond between Ben Simmons, D'Angelo Russell. So, maybe in the end, if he had to, he'd move D'Angelo Russell. But I think there's some temptation to see if if you could combine Ben with D'Angelo. But I do think, on D'Angelo specifically, I do think Gerson was the biggest fan in that front office. Not to say that Sachin is like shopping D'Angelo Russell, wants to move off D'Angelo Russell, but I think Gerson was the driving force behind acquiring D'Angelo Russell.
Dukes, let's say they don't get Ben Simmons, and let's say this is the team going into the season. You got Patrick Beverley, Malik Beasley, and you're hoping that all these guys stay healthy and on the court. What is the feeling about how good this team can be? Because I feel like if Ant plays the way he did down the stretch and maybe even gets better, and they're making some defensive scheme tweaks I see in the first couple days of practice already, and this will be Chris Finch full off season. He can install different things. I feel like they're ready to take a jump even without a big trade for Ben Simmons. What are you sort of sensing?
And, I mean, the early schedule. I think there's an opportunity
lot of home games.
To get off to a really good start. What is it, 8 of the first 9?
Yeah, I don't know if I love that, because then you get like all these road games in January when, but
you do. But in
it's
terms
weird.
of just some confidence building, if you're a believer at all in momentum, the way they finished last season with a winning record over their final, 16 games, a 9-7 record, but nonetheless, it was over 500. So if you're a believer in momentum, I think there's an opportunity to carry, if you believe in that, into the start of this season. Yeah, I mean, when they were in Miami a couple weeks ago, Phil, I mean, they were openly talking about, we're ready. Like, it's time. It's time to make the playoffs again. In Cat's case, only being in the playoffs one time in 6 years, he's heard all the chatter, including from some people pretty close to him, about, hey, one time in 6 years, Cat, like, what's going on? And, oh, by the way, that one time, Jimmy Butler had a lot to do with that. It's time for you to lead a team to the postseason. So they aren't, dodging, questions, inquiries about it. They will openly talk about it. Now, heck, a lot of teams talk about making the playoffs this time of the year. Does that dialogue remain, come January, February, the dog days of the season? But I'm just telling you, coming off that Miami trip earlier this month, they're pretty optimistic that they have a chance to make some noise this year.
Hey, Duke, to go back to the new group that's going to eventually, to your point, take over the ownership of this team, what are the rumblings of concern still that exist? I'm just curious if there's anything in particular when it comes to A-Rod and Laurie that actually exists as far as concern about them, because they've got 2 payments of $20 million left, correct? Or
well,
no,
more than that, $250 million.
250 million. Yeah, that'd be a good deal. 20 million. But what are the concerns that are still being voiced out there that you've heard?
I don't even know if they're concerns, Judd. More just, some questions. I'm telling you, I don't think you'd do the dog and pony show on Monday if there were like legit serious questions.
It's the Wolves though, so it always concerns me.
Yeah, I get it. I understand the skepticism. I really do. But I think a lot of people in the organization are pretty excited. Like, I think they're excited that Mark and Alex have talked to so many people. In many ways, drove the bus on Gerson's firing. Like, do I think Glenn drove the bus on that? No. Now, did Glenn approve the firing? Yes, but it's not like Glenn was in charge of that. It
was a weekend at Bernie's situation. They picked him up, drove him up from Mankato, lifted his arm, signed off on it. That's what happened.
Oh, I love Weekend at Bernie's and Weekend at Bernie's too. But anyway,
young kids who watch the YouTube channel, just Google it.
It was, Mark maybe more so than Alex, but just talking to a lot of people in Vegas at Vegas Summer League, gathering a ton of information. We know this much. I mean, Glenn's not big on paying somebody not to work. And I mean, looking at, Gerson's contract, I wish I had it, but there may be some language in said contract where Glenn may not have to pay Gerson, but nonetheless, I don't think Glenn was necessarily like, yeah, let's do this. But, I think Mark in particular really convinced Glenn, hey, we got to do this. And we all know Glenn can be convinced on stuff. Glenn loves Ricky Rubio. I remember the Ricky Rubio trade when Tibbs traded Rubio way back when. Mm-hmm. And it's not like Glenn wanted to trade Ricky, but Tibbs was able to convince him. And there's any number of examples where Glenn, he can be influenced. He really can. And I think Mark is going to have Glenn's ear in so many different ways, where I think that really excites a lot of people in the Wolves organization.
Yeah. Let's move on to Vikings here, Duke. So Dalvin Cook back at practice. Christian Darrisaw getting closer. I think initially yesterday, there were reports, hey, Rashad Hill's not at practice. What does that mean? It looked like, at least on the injury report, the Vikings gave a small handful of just veteran off days to players, and Rashad Hill was on that list. I highly doubt Christian Darrisaw is making his NFL debut against Myles Garrett this weekend. So what are you hearing about the status of some of these players?
Yeah, I mean, heck, Phil, the offensive line has been pretty darn good.
It's been average, baby. That's all we've asked for. It's been
maybe
average.
even above average, depending on how you want to quantify it. But yeah, like you're not putting Christian Darrisaw in there this Sunday. Now, maybe heading into the Detroit game, I still feel pretty good about what I said many weeks ago, that it's when, not if, Christian Darrisaw gets in there. But yeah, you're not making that change heading into the Cleveland game. Yeah, I mean, it was who? Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith.
Yeah.
It might have been Adam Thielen, Rashad Hill. I don't have my phone in front of me with the official list. But yeah, Zim giving a bunch of guys a veteran day. I'm excited for Sunday. Like, I'm catching up. I was telling you guys before we started, I'm catching up with Brad Childress at 11:45 to talk a little Kevin Stefanski.
Stefanski.
I had Scott Studwell
vodka
in
this
studio
afternoon.
yesterday. He's got a new book out, and so I was catching up with Scott. Actually, the stories off camera were so much better than on camera. But the stories off camera, unfortunately, just
Did you roll
they
film
couldn't
anyway?
be told. What's that, Judd?
I said, did you roll film regardless?
No. It was in the sports.
Scott, it's all off
office.
the record. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he had some
Coming
good,
up next on,
Yeah, he had some
Channel
good
5 on Nightcap.
Yeah, he had some really good Mankato stories, some good Jerry Burns stories.
Oh, I bet he did.
But yeah, I mean, he was good on camera. But like we were talking about, he had his fingerprints all over a lot of the guys that are currently on the roster. Whether it's Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks. He actually had a good story about Kendricks that, he liked him coming out of UCLA. Didn't have him as a second-round grade. It was others in the Vikings office that convinced Scott, hey, we gotta pull the trigger on Kendricks in the second round. He had him more as a third-round guy. And so he admitted, he goes, I was wrong on Kendricks. Just a phenomenal player. But Kevin Williams going into the Ring of Honor on Sunday, the Stefanski, return and all that. I don't know if you want to call this game close to a must-win. Do you want to try to dig out of a 1-3 hole? Or do you look at 2-2 and say, okay, Detroit's coming to town. We get to 2-2, then we're going to get over 500, find a way to beat Detroit, get to 3-2. But yeah, I'm excited for Sunday. I saw the video. We had our photojournalist Jeff Briaschi at practice on Wednesday. He's got that long lens. So anybody trying to take photos at practice yesterday on their iPhone, you would have failed miserably. But we got that nice long TV lens. He's got
Harrison Smith's nose hair coming up next on 5 Eyewitness News.
So we've got some pretty good Dalvin Cook video. I can just tell you he was moving considerably better than he was last week. I mean, technically last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he was listed as a non-participant all 3 days in practice, but he was out there all 3 days doing a little bit of stuff, but you could tell how gingerly he was moving on that injured ankle. I can tell you he was moving considerably better yesterday. I'm not making any sort of, guarantees on anything in terms of playing time Sunday. In fact, if he doesn't play, I guess I wouldn't be overly surprised, but I can just tell you, he looked a lot better yesterday compared to 5-6 days prior.
So the intriguing thing about what we're seeing now, and it's just sort of, I feel like starting, but it's becoming very clear, is the element of Zimmer realizing what he needs from this team to flat out save his job. Veterans days off, which is not Zim. Like, Zim likes to practice. There's, a story in the Star Tribune today, and this was talked about extensively during the press conferences on Wednesday, about the relationship between the coach and Cousins and how they're now once a week getting together to watch film, which we've talked extensively about. But I just think it's a really interesting path that this is going down. And I don't know if somebody got to Mike, or Mike just said, I'm going to get fired if we're not, a much improved team. But there really is a difference that I see in, at least from training camp to now, in how he sort of adjusted and what he seems to be trying to do to get the players to play for him instead of playing in spite of him.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. I wish I had the answer if it was a Bill Parcells conversation, a Gary Kubiak conversation. someone else, or he just came to the realization himself. Maybe it was a combination. Hugh Jackson is another, confidant of Mike's. So yeah. In fact, I should actually catch up with Hugh. Thanks for the reminder. I'll catch up with Hugh soon. That's another Mike confidant. But I wouldn't be shocked if Mike just came to the realization himself. I mean, truth be told, it's not like they're in pads. I mean, the practice rules have been laxed so much. I mean, these guys are doing all the film work. They're in all the meetings. Whether they're getting those physical reps on a Wednesday, 5 days ahead of the game, is it that big of a deal? They'll get their reps today. They'll get a few reps on Friday, but like these guys are in shorts for the most part. Like it's not like, they're doing heavy hitting, during the week. So yes, it is an adjustment though, right? Like we're not used to this, but it's also something that many other teams do, and it's a copycat league. So I wouldn't be shocked if Mike just saw some other teams, who do this, who have been having success. Why shouldn't I do it?
Doogie, I just what a valiant effort by the Twins here, just racking up these wins, really carrying that momentum into 2022. What sort of do you think they're going to win the World Series in 5 games or 7 next year? I guess is my what as we clean
is there
up.
Going to be a World Series, Phil?
Well, that's a question. All right, what are we haven't talked a ton of Twins the last several weeks here on this show, but now that the season's winding down. Anything that sort of pops to you with potential changes, or are they going into sort of a rebuild? So, some of it might depend on what happens with Buxton this offseason. Give us the temperature of the Twins right now.
I can see them extending Byron Buxton. I've talked about that before, but I'll reiterate it now. That I think the two sides came close enough over the summer. I can see them coming to a happy medium. I can see them extending Byron Buxton before he hits the unrestricted free agent market. I also see them re-signing Michael Pineda. Now, I checked as recently as last night just to see if there's been any actual chatter. It's not unheard of. Like, I saw the Royals extended Michael Taylor, an outfielder, this week. So it's not unheard of for a team to engage with some agents here at the very end of the season. Maybe lock a guy up before the guy has a chance this winter to become an unrestricted free agent. So I checked on Pineda. No, there have not been any talks on extending Pineda, but I know there's mutual interest. So I can see the Twins this winter re-signing Michael Pineda. We wonder about, coaching staff changes. There is a coach. Is the pronunciation on Bill's last name, is it Evers or Evers? But he's retiring. I still think they miss, going back a couple years, they miss Shelton. They miss Rowson. Those are 2 coaches that had a heavy influence. And I really think Rocco misses those 2 guys. So they got to figure out some things with the coaching staff. I also wonder a little bit, do the Mets reach out to the Twins seeking permission to interview Derek Falvey? Do the Rockies have interest in Thad Levine? And in the same breath, like if you're those 2 organizations, would you have any interest in either of those guys after the disaster of this year? The many moves they made that failed miserably. If you're the Rockies or you're the Mets, would you really have legit interest in either of those guys?
No, absolutely not. If I'm the Mets, I'm going after one human being, Theo Epstein.
He's not taking it. He either wants to be the commissioner or get into ownership.
He needs to be the commissioner.
I'm with you, Judd. Now, if you're Steve Cohen, Judd,
I was going to say Steve Cohen's got a lot of money. You could
offer him a sliver
of
ownership, right? Maybe offer him an opportunity to become part of your ownership group. It's something I actually heard Mark Lowry. Now, I don't even know if it got to Masai Ujiri, who runs the Toronto Raptors, before he signed his new contract. But I heard it was something that came up with Lowry and some people about offering Masai a sliver of Timberwolves ownership. That would be the pathway to bringing him in to running the front office. So if you're Steve Cohen, the majority owner of the Mets, would you consider giving Theo some sort of sliver of ownership with an opportunity to grow, whatever that stake is? Because I think that's the only prayer you would have to attract Theo Epstein. But I'm with you. If there's one guy you can hire, it should be Theo Epstein.
Yeah, these guys, man, it's amazing. Like the moves that they made universally, like across the board, came up over. I think I'm trying to think of a move they made in the offseason that wound up as a positive for them. And now they're staring down the barrel of just a wide open. I mean, I think Joey Ryan's he's gonna be the number one starter next year on paper, and Bailey Ober's gonna be in there somewhere. But they have to figure out at least 3 other rotation spots, a bullpen. They've got some holes in their lineup and some young guys that are going to emerge. So I don't know, man. This whole thing, I'll say this, Doogie. I don't think this is being painted, not to start like a media war here, but this is the most disastrous season in Twins history. And I don't feel like it's being painted that way. And I don't know if it's because people are just apathetic or it was just over in April and May, and so people have kind of forgotten.
That's it, Phil. I'm telling you. I think it is an apathetic fan base and even in many ways media base that they were out of it so early in the season. Now, maybe they wouldn't admit so, but a lot of us counted them out by about April 25th, that it was so early, that the season is so darn long, that they've brought up so many different players. You just kind of get lost in the shuffle. They've had how many different players on their 26-man roster this year? 50-something? I mean,
I think it's like 53
it's an
or something.
absurd number. You get lost in so many different roster moves taking place, and just so much other stuff going on, just on the sports landscape, that admittedly, like I've tuned out a little bit. I had a guy on Twitter last night asking me for a Royce Lewis update. I said, crap. Last time his name came up on my radar was a month ago. No, it was a month ago when I caught up with Alex Hassan, who's in the Twins front office. That was August 25th. I haven't even really thought much about the Twins since about late August. I really haven't. I knew I was talking to you guys this morning, and with Pineda pitching last night, it got my brain moving a little bit. So I reached out to somebody that would know, and they told me no, there's no actual dialogue on extending Pineda. Otherwise, I haven't done much. I did want to hear about Joe Ryan because he did go on the bereavement list, and I'm with you, Phil. I think he's got great upside. I mean, that is one really good move they made. Although, Tampa would make that move again. I'm positive the Rays would make that trade again because the Rays are a pitching factory.
But think about this: like that was. I mean, Joe Ryan's going to be a really good pitcher for this team, but they literally they traded the one of the best hitters in franchise history because they were so bad they had to, and they had to set Nelson Cruz. All right, I guess we can't fulfill your need to play in the playoffs, so you're going to go elsewhere. Jose Barrios, who's in his prime, by the way, you could make the case. Let's go back 10, 11 years ago when that stadium was built. The main promise, or whatever you want to call it, was, hey, this will help us keep players in-house. We'll be able to re-sign the Mornos, and Mauer had already signed his contract, and then future free agents. And I would have traded Barrios too because he wasn't really giving any indication that he wanted to play here long term. But still, it's like you traded away your best pitcher and your best hitter, and so any positives that come from that are because you had to hit the reset button earlier than you expected to. So
I don't think, though. I do think next year's a rebuild, whether they want to admit that on the record or not. But I actually think 2023, I don't think this is going to be a lengthy rebuild.
But we've been doing. But this is what we do for 20 years.
I know. I mean, coming off 1920,
just wait.
We didn't see this coming. Hey. I get it. I mean, it's rock bottom, baby. It really is, and that's why, Judd, to your point, I'm with you. If I'm the Mets, I don't have any interest in Derek Falvey. I'm not calling Jim Pohlad to seek permission because it would be a lateral move to interview Derek Falvey. No bleeping way am I going after Derek Falvey if I'm Steve Cohen. And if I'm the Rockies, I'm not going after Thad Levine. I'm sorry.
The worst part about this year that we have not talked about much at all is look at their top prospect pitchers, innings pitched. These guys have been sidelined by injuries. They have not got the minor league pitcher of the year, I think, is a kid from here who I've never really heard of until now.
Louis Varland. He's got good upside.
But he's in Class A. But look at the guys who were in the minors. There are about 4 guys who should have been vying for that award if we had talked about it in the spring, and every one of them had an issue where, for the most part, they got hurt. They didn't pitch enough. So, that's the whole thing is you can't be like, well, okay, 2022, when we do start, we're going to plug them in and it's going to be great. Yeah. You don't know that. So,
no, that's what I'm saying. That's why, I mean, I don't think any of those guys, Winder, Duran, Balazovic, those guys still need some minor league seasoning. So that's where, to me, one or multiple of those guys, maybe they're up by June 15th of next year, or June 30th. This, again, is presuming that we have a normal 162-game schedule, which is the elephant in the room with the collective bargaining agreement expiring December 1st. But that's why, yeah, I mean, Phil, you're going to have to find another Jay Happ, another Matt Shoemaker, just to fill out the opening day rotation.
That's
like
great.
I don't foresee them spending big money on one of the big name free agents. I don't have the starting pitcher free agent list in front of me. I think that's more likely to take place the following year. When you look at that class with Barrios, Aaron Nola, some others, that's when they extend another Zach Wheeler or Darvish type offer.
Are we really going to get another bleeping Homer Bailey? Like, is that really what we're going? Hey, fan base,
I don't even care.
Get excited. Here's another Homer Bailey.
Screw the Twins.
Although, look at Jay Happ. He hadn't been a train wreck after he went to St. Louis, right?
You know what?
That's another question. Why do guys leave here?
Yes.
Lance Lynn. Look at Lance Lynn.
Yeah,
Shoemaker.
why do they leave here, then have the success they do elsewhere?
Kyle Gibson. I mean,
Lamont
come on,
Wade
man.
Jr., Nick Anderson, go up and down the list.
Went to AAA, was great, and then ripped the Twins.
What's amazing is this was a major narrative during the Terry Ryan and Bill Smith regimes, too. It's been worse with this new regime. The guys who are leaving are becoming, like, Lamont Wade is one of the breakout stars on the best team in baseball this year. He's got a nickname, Late Night Lamont or whatever. Late Night
Lamont.
Yeah.
Anyways, we got to let Doogie go here because we've monopolized too much of his time.
But you're right, Phil. Like, I don't think it's been talked about enough. It really hasn't. Like, those guys have skirted by Derek and Thad big time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Doogie, thank you. Great stuff there. What a reckless speculation.
All right, Phil. Yeah. Prince Alegbe, by the way, one other note. Prince Alegbe, Minnehaha Academy. He's a great basketball player in this great 2022 class here in Minnesota. He'll announce his college choice tomorrow morning. The Gopher stopped recruiting him a while ago, so he's not going to be a Gopher. It's Boston College, Cal Berkeley, Ohio State. Probably one of the first two that I named. But anyway, congratulations. Really good kid. He's like a 3.8 or 4.0 student, so just really smart kid, really great kid. So I'm happy for Prince with him announcing his college choice tomorrow.
Nice. All right. Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about Minnesota sports.
And Judd, if you're at the game on Sunday, tell Jimmy Haslam hi. If you can catch up with him, ask him how much he pursued the Wolves.
Oh, we're good buddies. We're very close. See ya.
Yeah, you guys roll in the same underground cigar club.
Trucker companies, man.
God.
Trucker companies. I'm big in that. Own a bunch of them. You just don't know about it. Don't want to talk about it.
Speculation.